Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April Town Council meeting. We could have a moment of silence, and then we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do the moment of silence now. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mike Buswell,
Here.
Mary Isaac,
Here.
Eric Story,
Here.
Bill Mecca, Ann Sather,
Here.
Jennifer Winchell,
Here.
Veronica Lenzen,
Here.
Richard Wolf,
Here.
Jason Marsh,
Here.
Anthony Dorsey,
Here.
Ashley Gaudiano,
Here.
Carl Massaro,
Here.
John Foreman,
Here.
Joe Pifko,
Here.
Scott Wick,
Here.
Joey Cologne. I saw her earlier.
I'm here.
Thank you. Steve Lemoyne. I know he was trying to join,
I see Steve as an attendee, but not as a panelist.
so he needs to be brought in.
I've already given him the ability to speak. He has to unmute his phone by pressing *6.
All right, he's present then.
Okay. Kelly Malazzi,
Here.
Tony Cinto,
Here.
Evan Shively,
Here,
and Nicole Satin.
Here.
Thank you.
Hi, Steve Lemoyne. I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask everybody to mute your microphones so that we have one person speaking at a time. Appreciate everybody joining by Zoom this evening. This is vacation week, eclipse day, and championship night. So we have a couple of matters that are important that we need to address this evening, and then move on from there. Next on the agenda is public comment. Bill, do you have anybody on board for public comment?
Sure. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. It does not appear that anyone wishes to make a comment.
Okay, thank you. Then I will close public comment. We have two sets of minutes to approve this evening. One is from our regular meeting of March 4th. Is there a motion to approve?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That was Nicole. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, just to remind you that it's Dan Shopik speaking, that unless it's unanimous consent, we need to have a roll call vote on every item.
All right, can we approve these minutes then by unanimous consent? Is there anybody opposed? Seeing none, we have unanimous consent to approve the March 4th minutes. We also have minutes to approve from our special meeting of March 19th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved, Kelly Malazzi.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have a second?
Second, Ashley.
Ashley, thank you. All in favor? Okay, let's say, can we adopt this by unanimous consent? Anybody opposed? All right. Those are approved by unanimous consent. Our first item this evening is a discussion item on the auditor's report, excuse me. We have Joseph Santafanti from O'Connor and Davies. So I'll recognize him to give us a presentation on this report.
Talk about the two different documents. The larger report is the audit report, and the financial statement audit, and the other report is the federal and state single audit, the smaller one. So the highlights for 2023, there was a new standard implemented, GASB 96, related to software subscriptions. So this changed what's on Exhibit A, your liabilities for subscription payable, and some of the footnotes. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's very similar to the lease standard that was implemented last year. The accounting is basically the same. It's just basically you're leasing software versus leasing other types of more tangible assets like copiers and that type of thing. So the opinion on the financial statement starts on page 9. It's an unmodified opinion, right? We call it clean opinion. So no issues with scope or anything else. So that's again the type of opinion you are looking to get. Starting on page 12 through 23 is the management discussion analysis. This is a good executive summary of the fiscal year operations and a lot of discussion of how things compare to the prior year. So a couple of things it does talk about is general fund balance as a percentage of expenditures and transfers out, which was about 16.88%, almost 17%, which is a good healthy number. It does talk about some of the budgetary highlights as far as the budget changes and some of the variances between the budget and actual, which we'll talk about some of the more significant ones in a little bit. And also talks about significant capital asset activity. So what your major purchases are. Tennis courts were constructed for about $949,000. A lot of road paving, about almost 1.5 million in paving. And then for related to the WPCA, you have construction in progress, so about 3.4 million for a pump station. So looking at Exhibit C and D, which are your GAAP financial statements, of Exhibit C at the bottom, you'll see your fund balance totaled $31,718,000. Again, that's the 16.88% of the total expenditures. Your net change in fund balance on Exhibit D was almost 5.8 million for June 30 fiscal year. So that was a very positive year, which brought your fund balance up by that amount. Your internal service funds are in positive position. Page 33, you have about $62,000 of equity in your workers' comp, partner hypertension liability. So it's a positive number, which is a good thing. Last year you did reduce that positive number by about 293,000. So something to pay attention to as far as funding. So you keep that on a positive equity position. For GASB 96, there's an update to your accounting policy notes on page 46, and then there's very specific details on the subscription liability and the types of things that were recorded in the long-term debt note on page 68. So basically you have a liability at June 30 of about 676,000 for subscription payable. And there was a prior period, just like last year, related to that. So the beginning amount was 769,000. You can see that on page 96. There's no really impact on equity because the other side of this is a capital asset that you're right to use. Starting on page 97 is your budgetary statements. So your revenues and other financing sources, budget and actual, and then following that, expenditures and other financing sources. So basically it's a mirror of your budget and comparing it to actual. So your revenues in total exceed your budget by $3,448,000. And the big drivers in that were, property taxes were under about 1.2 million due to the tax settlement. Your intergovernmental revenue was over $1,753,000, basically driven by the ECS grant, the education money. And then charges of services, town clerk was up about 355,000. Building revenues were up and 99,000. Cell tower revenue was up. Rentals for that was 372. And then income from investments was up $2 million. So those are basically what drove your revenue increase. The town clerk and building fees, that's pretty consistent with most towns, that those amounts have been above budget fairly consistently since COVID happened. Expenditures on the financing uses were under budget by 2.7 million. That was driven by public safety, was under about 705,000. Most of that was police, 573 of that was police. Public works was under in total function 721,000. And that was driven by the highway department, was under about 254,000. And then education came in under budget 424,000 last year. Looking at your pension and OPEB funds, the town's pension plan percentage funded went up about 1% from 45.3 to 46.4. You know, 80% is considered a well-funded plan, so that particular fund probably needs some attention to get closer up to that amount. And again, we did have a recovery from 22 due to the market value. So you did have an increase in investment income of 4.2 million as compared to last year, but it was a negative number. The police pension is funded at 77.64%. That's slightly down about 0.5%. And that basically was due to the town lowering the discount rate from 7.25% to 7%. And the impact on the liability for that change was about 9.1 million. And your investment income didn't cover all that amount. So that is also the trend with actuarial and discount rates, is the actuaries have been recommending closer to 7 or even a little bit lower than that. For your OPEB plan, again, still a newer plan, it's only it's just under 3% funded, just a slight increase from the prior year. Now looking at the federal and state single audit document, for federal single audit, the town expended $8,312,000 in federal funds. We did test 4 of those funds. So the coronavirus state and local, the ARPA grant, education stabilization fund, ESSER fund at the education side. Both those grants are designated as higher risk, so they're pretty much tested every year that you have those funds. Both of those funds will eventually go away, but currently we're still meeting from the risk assessment to be tested. We also tested Title I, an education grant, and special education cluster IDA grant on the education side. We had no findings or no question costs with any of our testing that we performed. State single audit, again, no findings or question costs. The town expended $10,693,000 of state funds. We tested several programs, the VOAG program, the local capital improvement program, community connectivity program, and then the tiered pilot, which is just a combination of a couple grants, a Mercer grant and the revenue sharing, as well as the specific state-owned property. We also did provide a letter that talks about our responsibilities. It does confirm that we're independent in the town. And it talks about that we do audit estimates and those type of things. And the footnotes are clear and consistent and those as far as the disclosure goes. And finally, the last item, new standards. There's nothing new for 2024. There is a new standard for 25, which is an update of a very old standard. It's basically related to compensated absences, sick and vacation time. And the intent of GASB is just trying to get everybody be a little bit more consistent in their calculations, so they periodically reissue standards to kind of get everybody. So that's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Centofanti. Before I open it to the council, just a couple questions. You indicated the fund balance went up $5.8 million in the fiscal year ending last June. Could you just reiterate how that came to pass? If you can.
It's a thing. So your revenue was in excess of your budget, about 3.4 million. And that was driven basically by ECS grant. You're over about 1,753,000, and investment income was over $2 million. And then you add to that the accounts, the functions that were underspent by $2.762 million. Again, public safety 705. You can look at RSI pages 99 and 100. It gives you the details. But the under expenditure and the revenue received in excess of budget, those numbers don't, because the encumbrances don't exactly equal, but that's roughly what generated the $5.8 million.
Okay, and so your audit is essentially a financial audit. Did you do any operational reviews?
No, just whatever type of questions that we ask for standard audit, but no operation
All right,
reviews.
all right. Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the council? Don't think I'm seeing anyone. Okay. Last call. If not, I will close the audit discussion, and thank you, Mr. Centofanti, for coming out this evening. All right, we'll move to our business agenda. We have resolution TC 30-35. Do we have a motion and a second to read the title of this bond resolution in its entirety and to waive the reading of the remainder of the resolution, incorporating its full text into the minutes of the meeting? Do we have such a motion?
So
I
moved.
make the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Gaudiano. Second,
I second.
is that Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. All right, then, Mr. Dorsey, would you then move to the floor by reading the title of the bond resolution?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting the agenda up. So just,
Okay, so anybody have that in front of them?
I just,
Leanne,
Chairman,
would
Mr.
you
Chairman,
move
Dan Shopik, I don't know, I think we have to have a vote on.
Okay, on that motion, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have unanimous consent to waive the reading, the full resolution, and just read the title? Are there any objections? No, then the motion passes by unanimous consent. Go ahead, Ms. Gaudiano, would you read the title, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-35, resolution appropriating $10 million for the acquisition of real property for open space, recreation, and other town purposes, and authorizing the issue of $10 million bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof of the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. Full resolution attached.
And incorporated by reference, we have a second?
Second,
Ms.
Kelly
Lin-
Malazzi.
Thank you, so Ms. Lenzen, thank you. All right, can we have a committee report from Mr. Pifko, please, from LNA?
Mr. Chairman, could Mike Buswell please give that, since he was the chair, meeting wasn't there.
Boswell, do you have that committee report? No?
I don't have the committee report in front of me.
Okay. I will read it. Let's see. On that resolution, there was a motion by Ms. Guardiano, seconded by Ms. Lenza to enter executive session to discuss the land acquisition issues. Motion carried unanimously. So the LNA committee entered executive session at 7:04 p.m. with the following people present. The LNA committee members, Vice Chairman Mike Boswell, Steve Lemoyne, Veronica Lenzen, Jason Marsh, Ashley Guardiano, Tony Cinto, as an alternate and sitting as a regular member, Town Attorney Dan Chopik, Director of Finance, Maria Pyrus, First Selectman Vicky Tesoro, and the Chief Administrative Officer Cindy Katsky. Later, it was moved by Ms. Guardiano, seconded by Mr. Lemoyne to end the executive session. That vote carried unanimously. The executive session for LNA committee ended at 7:31. On the resolution was moved by Ms. Guardiano, seconded by Ms. Lenzen to amend that resolution to read as $6 million. That motion carried unanimously. And the motion as amended was also carried unanimously. All right. So we do have bond counsel with us this evening, Attorney Keisha Palmer. And is there a motion to go into executive session on this resolution?
So moved. Veronica Lenzen.
Thank you. Second?
I second. Tony Dorsey.
Thank you. Before we vote, we will include bond counsel Keisha Palmer, Attorney Dan Chopik, First Selectman and her staff, Maria Pyrus. Is there anybody else who should be included in this executive session? If not, I'll call for the voters for unanimous consent to enter executive session.
If I may, can you state the reason why?
Yeah, I'll give you a reason. This is Dan Chopik. Discussing issues with regard to land acquisition, and which there would be discussion of values and potential claims and litigation.
Thank you, Attorney Chopik. That is the reason. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there unanimous consent to enter executive session at 7:54? Anyone opposed? Hearing none. It's unanimous consent to enter executive session. Mr. Chin will send the link to all of those who are going to participate in the session. You have to leave this site, re-enter it later after executive session. Bill, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
So am I back in the regular meeting?
Yes, this is the public meeting.
Great. There we go. It's a party.
I'm here too, Carl.
Hi, Steve. Welcome back. Looks like we're all here. So for our council clerk, the motion to come out of executive session was made by Veronica Lenzen, seconded by Nikki Satin at 8:20, and it was unanimous consent. So we are back on the regular meeting with resolution TC 30-35. Is there any motion?
I have a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Guardiano. Go ahead.
I would motion that we amend this resolution and reduce the amount from 10 million to 6 million.
Second.
Second from Ms. Lenzen. Any discussion on that motion? If not, I'll ask for unanimous consent. Do we all consent to the approving of that motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is adopted by unanimous consent. We now have resolution TC 30-35 on the floor, amended to $6 million. Is there further discussion? Comments? Hearing none, I'll call for unanimous consent. Do we all consent to the approval of the motion as amended to $6 million? Is there any objection?
I don't consent.
Okay, we'll have to do a roll call, Madam Clerk, please. This is the vote on the motion as amended in the amount of $6 million.
Mike Buswell,
Yes.
Mary Isaac,
Yes.
Eric Story,
Yes.
Ann Sather,
Yes.
Jennifer Winchell, Jennifer Winchell. I will come back to her. Veronica Lenzen,
Yes.
Richard Wolf,
Yes.
Jason Marsh,
Yes.
Anthony Dorsey,
Yes.
Ashley Gaudiano,
Yes.
Carl Massaro,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Joe Pifko,
Yes.
Scott Wick,
No.
Joy Cologne,
Yes.
Steve Lemoyne,
Yes.
Kelly Malazzi,
Yes.
Tony Cinto,
Yes.
Kevin Shively,
Yes.
Nicole Satin,
She's trying to get back into the Zoom room.
okay. Has Jennifer Winchell come back?
Yes. Yes.
And your vote is?
Yes.
Thank you. Nicole
Yeah.
Satin,
I don't
She's-
see her on yet, Margaret.
okay. Is
Jennifer,
Bill Mecca is still not here, correct?
Bill is not coming this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer, just to be clear, the votes we're taking is the vote on the resolution TC 30-35 is amended down to 6 million. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, and you voted affirmatively.
Yes.
Okay. Still looking for Miss Satin.
I'm here, finally. I don't know what
Yeah.
I did with the link. Sorry.
So we're concluding the vote on resolution TC 30-35 amended down to 6 million. And so we need your vote, yay or nay, or abstention.
Yay.
Thank you.
Very good. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. My question is there a need for emergency legislation on this? Anybody? Mr. Shopik? Mr. Tesoro?
I don't believe so. Because
Okay.
any push is gonna have to come back to you. So at that point, it would be effective.
Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to our second matter, resolution 2C30-36. Mr. Wolf, can you bring this to the floor? 30-36.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Resolution TC 30-36, to consider and act upon a resolution which would approve the funding for the
Hold on.
amended.
You got to read it on the second page, the resolution, not the agenda item.
Oh, sorry. Resolution TC 30-36, be it resolved that the funding for the amended tentative agreement between the town of Trumbull and Trumbull Police Union Local 1745, Council 15 is hereby approved.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Ms. Lenzen?
Thank you.
Let's see. Mr. Pipko or Mr. Buswell, do you have the committee report? If not, I can do that.
If you could, Carl.
And so I will. This resolution was moved by Ms. Gaudiano, seconded by Mr. Lemoyne to enter into executive discussion to discuss collective bargaining. That motion carried unanimously. The LNA committee entered into executive session at 7:34 p.m. with the following people present. The LNA committee members, Mike Buswell, Steve Lemoyne, Veronica Lenzen, Jason Marsh, Ashley Gaudiano, Tony Cinto is sitting as a regular member, and Labor Relations Director Tom McCarthy, Town Attorney Dan Shopik, Director of Finance Maria Pyrus, First Selectman Vicky Tesoro, and Chief Administrative Officer Cindy Katsky. It was later in executive session moved by Ms. Lenzen, seconded by Mr. Lemoyne to end executive session. That motion carried unanimously, and the executive session ended at 7:50 p.m. On the resolution, the resolution was voted unanimously to recommend. Right. So that's the committee report. We have the resolution on the floor. Is there a need to go to executive session? We have Mr. McCarthy with us. And we also consultant. Mr. McCarthy?
I think you froze for a second, Carl. At least you froze in my thing. So I didn't hear what you just said.
Is there a need to go into executive session? I acknowledge that you're present and Mr. Kevin Sullivan is present also.
So the answer is if there are questions or people want an explanation, then you have to go into executive session.
Okay, so the committee minutes were not very informative. As I understand, the purpose of this resolution is to make a correction to the tentative collective bargaining agreement with the Trumbull Police Union.
That is correct.
Can I say anything more about that?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh, let me ask council members, does anybody want to go into executive session? I think we are aware of what the need is in this situation. Okay, if nobody wants to do that. I know there are other things to do this evening. That's fine. I'll just ask Mr. Sullivan, you know what needs to be corrected here. Is fair to say?
Yes, and how much can I say about it without the need to go into executive session? I'll defer to Tom or someone to guide me on that.
You can You can say that, that there is a need for the correction and we agree to the correction. I think you could say that.
Yes, yes. It's necessary to make sure everything is in compliance with IRS rules. It doesn't change any cost estimates that we provided because everything's happening just as we assumed it would. Yeah, it was a little oversight on our part, just a technical correction needed to make sure everything stayed in IRS compliance.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Are there any comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none.
So for
I'm sorry.
purposes, Carl.
Yeah,
of
Mr. Marsh.
Is it fair to say, Mr. Sullivan, that what we voted on last time as a council hasn't or won't change substantively given the technical compliance change necessary?
Correct. I would agree with that.
Thank you.
All right, let me be presumptuous, Mr. Sullivan and Mr. McCarthy. If this resolution passes this evening, do you need emergency legislation?
We do not.
Do not. Okay, I do have a question in terms of the technical correction. The union involved, have they assented to this correction?
The leadership has assented. They have to wait a certain number of days. I think it's 15 days for an actual vote. And so they're in the waiting period right now. But the union leadership has assented.
Okay. And obviously it's your recommendation and Mr. Sullivan's recommendation to make this technical correction.
Very strong recommendation.
Yes, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? If not, can we approve this resolution by unanimous consent? Is there any objection? Hearing none, the resolution TC 30-36 is approved by unanimous consent. And I've come to the end of the agenda as I see it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Slenzen, second.
Second.
Scordiano, thank you. Is that by unanimous consent? Any objection? Anybody want to hang out any longer? All right, thank you. I'll assume consent, and we are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good vacation week. See you soon.